Aisha Evans, Zoox CEO. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to ask you the same questions over and over again. But I think, to be fair, in that time, Zoox has made a lot of deployment and technology progress. What's changed is Las Vegas is kind of a real world thing. The purpose-built robotaxi, no steering wheel, no pedals, inward-facing seats. It operates on multi-lane traffic, public roads. What I still don't think many people appreciate is, like, why is that important?
It's important because there truly is no driver in this vehicle. It's not a car. It's a transportation machine that is built really for cabin experiences, for rider experiences. And there are a lot of scenarios. In self-driving for robotaxi, you're not as good as your previous ride. You're as good as your next ride, because there are so many scenarios and so many things you need to put in place and to make sure. And that's why we're taking our time. I've also been consistent that we're very measured, because there are a lot of edge cases that really you have to be ready for.
Well, some of your competitors who have fallen on mixed fortunes, frankly, made sort of very bold market predictions. And you kind of resisted the urge to do that. Las Vegas, though, did turn a few heads. Why Las Vegas?
It's a great market, obviously.
Why is it a great market?
People use on-demand sort of transportation here. In multiple forms. It's not just Uber, Lyft, it's also chauffeured cars and so on. In terms of, it has speed, which you need, because the higher the speed, when it comes to the safety case, that's important. It has complex, dense urban scenarios, so you kind of meet the corner cases and edges. And it's in a fairly limited and contained geofence size. So it's commercially viable, and it's a great first step for us.
Take Vegas and replicate it in other cities around America. What does that look like?
It looks like making sure we don't overfit for anything. We stay generalized in all of our methodologies, and end-to-end, whether it's in simulation and scenario generation, as well as the L3 fleet or the test fleet, as well as the final code that goes onto the robot and operations. So that's really our goal. As you know, we've been consistent since the beginning. We went for the ultimate solution that we think is the right solution for riders. And so it's about making sure that we can take it and just have a few things to add, but it scales in a very predictable way.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
So the right thing to do, or the right way to do it. I reiterate, we're talking about a purpose-built robotaxi, but it's a shuttle that has no pedals, no steering wheel, and inward-facing seats, and there is no element of human control in it whatsoever. Why do you still have the conviction that that technology solution is the best one?
Because when you look at all of the things that you need to do to control the edge cases that we talk about, nominal driving is, fairly routine and everybody can do it. But being able to meet every single scenario, I'm going to give you one example.
Please.
That we haven't even talked about publicly. We were, traveling at fairly high speed, like over 40, 45 miles an hour. There's a truck in front of us, and it happened to be a food truck, and taco plates started flying out of it.
Okay.
So you can imagine that is not something we had thought about in all of our scenarios. We handled it well, by the way.
Well, how did the purpose-built vehicle respond, literally?
It basically looked at it, saw them, slowed down and said, hey, I'm seeing stuff coming. And then it had to make a decision as to this is debris. Is it strikeable debris or not strikeable debris? And so, but it looked on the next lane and said that, I have space there, and just went on around it and moved on.
That's pretty remarkable, and it's probably attributable to the multiple sensors that make up the technology, right? I think it's fair to say that robotaxi's back in focus because of Elon Musk and Tesla. Lots of reporting, lots of public statements, but technologically they seem very clearly focused on a camera or vision-only based approach. That's not your approach. Why?
We think that, so first of all, we're all, like everybody else, we're waiting for the announcement, August 8th.
August, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Look, when we started this endeavor, we thought about the best sensor architecture to give you maximum opportunities to perceive the world around you and the interactions. maximum redundancy so that you have basically layers of checks. Then maximum control around safety systems, because again, we know that you have to be better than human drivers. So when we looked at that level of control and all of the iterations needed to get there, we felt that this was the best way to do so. And last but not least, the customer benefits, because we truly believe it's the best in-cabin experience for riders.
Let's talk about the customer. You have been super disciplined in not making bold predictions or forecasts on commercialization. But the next step would be to say, okay, the Vegas test has gone well. And I get a lot of it is down to the regulators making approvals. But you as the leader and CEO, do you have clear line of sight to how you would commercialize that, even that simple route of 10 miles round trip or 5 miles?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have a clear plan to do that. This is the most I will tell you. At least now I'm telling
Please.
You we have clear line of sight and a plan. We're not making any announcement in terms of the actual date, but it's coming soon. I mean, we've been public that we'd like to see our first customers towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, and that's still the plan that we're on.
When does autonomous driving, or I'm trying to define it, I guess, fleet-based robotaxi ride-hail on demand become the gold mine that all of your industry colleagues said it would be?
It will take a little bit more time. I think one of our fellow travelers is doing quite well. I'm sure you've taken rides in their vehicle.
We're talking about Waymo.
Obviously, we are feeling very confident too now, though we've gone straight to the purpose built. We don't have another step left. And so it'll be a few years, but like everything, I remember I study aviation a lot because
Right.
There's a safety component that's similar. There's a transportation component that's similar. And how long it took, you can expect that as long as we stay disciplined and we have generalized solutions, we'll start, and then at a pretty regular cadence, we'll keep adding neighborhoods, adding cities, figuring out the highway connection, and all the way up to snow at some point.
The origin of autonomous driving, or at least the concept of robotaxi in North America, originates in San Francisco. You know, I think many people associate that city with its hills, stop signs particularly, cyclists, etc., as being, if not the birthplace, kind of the bed of testing activity. I get the logic with Vegas, but when might we see the purpose-built vehicle navigate San Francisco?
Soon.
Soon?
Yeah, it'll start soon.
In what form?
The same way we do everything. It'll start with testing with Zoox employees, and then we will add friends and family, as we've done in Foster City. I want to tell you about that. And then we'll get to customers. But it's within the line of sight, too.
Foster City is a good case study. It's about a mile stretch of road between two of your facilities, and you can take that ride in the Zoox purpose-built vehicle. But what benefit do you guys derive from that in operating that route?
So first of all, operations. Second of all,
you mean experience of doing operations?
Yes, the back end behind all of this is really important. Second of all, it's a matter that a lot happens on that route. For example, there's a fire station training place, so EVs are coming in and out of there. For about a few months, we had a construction zone. They pop up from time to time. People make unexpected U-turns. We're also dealing with left-hand turns with lights and turning signals, and so sun angles and all of these things. We just expanded actually to nighttime and also light rain, so we're learning a ton. But the most important thing, the thing that really brings me joy, we've been at this for 10 years. We have a fairly meaningful number of employees who have been on the journey for all, 8, 9, 10 years. And imagine all this time they've been telling their friends and family that they are working on this thing. Maybe they've shown pictures and they've probably said, you can't say anything. And finally, they can ride. And so every evening when I'm leaving, I see families waiting in the lobby, getting registered, and then I see some of the footage around the happiness and joy that they get to experience this, including my own children,
right,
who just took their first ride. And then they give us a survey result.
That's almost like the test, though. Would you put your own children? I mean, that's the classic line that people put forward. You raise a good point, though, that largely for so many people around the world, it's psychological. would you get in a vehicle that has no steering wheel and no pedals? So here we are in Las Vegas, and I make my own view of the experience. But what do you think people should expect and brace for? What is the standard that you want to maintain for anyone that gets into a Zoox vehicle and has the ride, which for now is on a limited route?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I don't want them to think about driving at all. If they think about driving, something is missing. I want safety to be assumed. We want to be trusted. And then I want them to ride, be mesmerized at the beginning, but within a few minutes be like, wow, and start essentially reclaiming their time and doing whatever they want. For some people, it's
looking at this thing rather than out the window?
Some people days. By the way, one thing that happens is the community around here takes a lot of pictures because they're like, whoa, what is this? And so I tell everybody, don't confuse the robotaxi is the celebrity, not you, the person. And I just want them, when they've done it, to say, when can I do it again?
You are very consistent. I have to give you that. Over the years that we've been talking about this, it's almost like a tortoise and the hare scenario, right? That many of your competitors or other companies working on similar technologies, they move super fast to expand testing and then expand deployment, and you've stuck at the same kind of cadence. I suppose it's then fair to ask, well, how much pressure are you under to ramp up that cadence, particularly from your parent company, Amazon, who has made a serious financial investment, and I assume at some point wants a return? So
first of all, it doesn't feel like, it feels like, okay, we tested in Seattle, and we are still testing in Seattle.
With the vehicles that are behind me,
yes,
though, retrofitted gas cars. We are announcing that we'll start testing in Miami and Austin, and we will. These are truly test cars. We don't put customers in them and don't plan to, and therefore I think it's safe to assume we're testing at almost 3 locations, adding 2 more, and these vehicles are basically a precursor to the robotaxi coming. Yes. So I do feel like the scale and the speeding up is starting to happen. But to answer your question more directly, look. You said I was consistent. You can imagine that with our parent company, we're also consistent, transparent. We're very much, I work with everybody the same way. Zooks works with everybody the same way, including regulatory too. So we've been consistent. There are no surprises. They know what the plan is, and we're on the plan. Let's go back to the big picture. So whether it's General Motors and Cruise or Waymo or anyone else, around 2017, 2018, people had really big hopes for an industry that would emerge where I use an app and I hail something. Do you still have the belief that that industry and the fundamentals in which you based your hopes still exist, that it will happen irrespective of the timeline? Like, in the end, do we get there? Absolutely. I mean, it's a deeply held belief. It will happen. Look, I have a slightly different view of 2017 and 2018. I think that this is really how the world is going to evolve. It's a new form of transportation at scale that's going to be accessible to everyone, including people who maybe even don't hail today. And so, I'm a soccer mom. I wish I had this robotaxi while my kids were deep into soccer, for example. So if I back up... Because they were, at that time, reliant on you to get around. I was their driver, their chauffeur. Well, my husband and I were. Right. So it's going to happen. Now, when you have something that big, that's also economically sensible, you need people to have irrational belief at the beginning of it. Yes. Because otherwise, they don't start. There is so much invention. There's so much energy that's gone into this space. It's a big market, too, so it's worthy of going after. It's good for society. So, to me, the people who had those beliefs in 2017 and 18, I salute them. And then the question is, were they able to stay with the different phases? Because then reality starts, you start executing, it's safety critical. Well, you just used the phrase economically sensible. I don't really have a firm grasp on the economics of the purpose-built Zoox vehicle, right? Because the sensor suite's quite expensive. You have camera-based sensor, LiDAR, I think radar as well. Yes, and long-wave IR, so thermal. And long-wave IR. Mm-hmm. Those are still expensive. The computer's still quite expensive, localized and non-localized. And we were super fixated on the idea of a cost per mile. So you're looking for comparable rates to current generation ride-hail, Uber and Lyft, in a dollar per mile basis, is it economically sensible?
Yes, you know why?
Why?
We don't build this to sell it to you as a consumer. We sell you rides.
Extrapolate out.
Basically, when we talk about the fact that there are no human controls in terms of driving the vehicle, we talk about it a lot from a safety standpoint. But there's also, it's very efficient. It will pick up, drop off, pick up, drop off, pick up, drop off. By the way, it doesn't stop at 7-Eleven. It doesn't talk to anybody. It only needs to come to base to get charged or maybe cleaned, and then it's back out. And so it's constantly running. It's also electric. So that's why when in 2014, I have a lot of respect for the Zoox team, how they set up all of the things that were needed, not just from an autonomy standpoint, but from an operations standpoint, so that she's busy all day long picking and dropping off people. And so now when you start thinking about how many rides on a continuous basis, that is the secret. We do not sell. If we were to sell this robotaxi to people individually, it would make no sense whatsoever. But it is just, it's more like the airplane model than anything else.
A lot has changed since the first time you and I met and spoke, and a lot has changed in the times we spoke subsequently. Has Zoox become the leader in this field when you take into account what happened and has happened to the rest of the field?
You know, I've really stayed away from the race and, you know, calling who has pole position and who doesn't. There's so much nuance in this industry. What I will tell you is that Zoox has even more conviction in the path that it's chosen, and it is relieved that it chose it and had the courage to do it and to stay on course, because it's the ultimate solution, and that's what we're working on, and that's what we're deploying in a measured way, collaborating with city, state, federal, our community, and so we have even more conviction.
Aisha Evans, I mean, I've taken the ride and I've come out unscathed, and I'll reflect on my own experiences, but thank you so much for your time. And thank you for having me here in Las Vegas, away from home base.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you really, really thought.